Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Steven Haggerty. Today I'm joined by the founder of Tonic Health, Mr. Sunna van Kampen. Hope I nailed that. Did I nail that, Sunna?
You nailed it, Stephen. Well done.
Oh, thank you, man. Welcome to the show. Really pleased to
Thank
have
you.
you on. And excited to just explore how you guys have done in terms of the journey. It's your 1 year anniversary this year, so this is going to be a great chance to just have a little review section as well, I guess, for you as well. So thank you for your time. Let's jump straight into this. And for those that haven't heard of Tonic Health, just give an overview of what you guys do.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Stephen. So Tonic Health is the highest dose vitamin on the market with a full clean label. And I created it with the mission in mind to help people harness their natural power, which is the immune system. We all have this complex, wonderful kind of tool inside of us that keeps us healthy throughout the year and
Mm,
prevents viruses and infections from taking hold and helps us recover, but often we actually hinder it rather than help it. You've got things on the market that will be symptomatic relief and they're actually suppressing the immune function.
wow.
We're all about kind of harnessing it and harnessing its power to kind of aid recovery from common illness.
That is shocking that it could be counterproductive. What I'm really curious to know is what was going on in your world that made you want to go, look, I want to create the highest dose vitamin supplement on the market, a big, bold, ballsy mission. And your background, obviously, with co-founding LVK and baby products, it doesn't really seem like a natural step to get into this world.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And, interestingly, the idea actually came from when I was in banking. So I used to work for Barclays Bank and, I was burning the candle at both ends and I would get sick three or
Mm.
four times a winter. And, at that level of getting ill, I was just like, what is going on? Why am
Yeah,
I getting ill all
you're
the
like, that's
time? I
not
played
normal.
It's not normal. I thought I was healthy. I played a lot of sport and, I just considered myself, young and invincible, but obviously something wasn't right. So that just got me curious as to like, what
Mm.
could I do? So when I would get sick, I would then like see what I could take to try and help my immune system. And over the course of, a year of experimenting, I came up with like a plant-based formula with, turmeric and ginger and things like that in it, and found that if I took this drink three or four times a day at the first sign of a cold, instead of having this like protracted 5 to 7 day illness, it would be gone within 2 to 3 days. And my body would just kind of fight it off without it
Nice.
getting severe. And I'd be right as rain and, wouldn't need to take days off work or miss any social events or anything like that. So, when I discovered that, I was like, wow, like this is super powerful. A, I'm going to keep doing it. And
Yeah.
B, how can I find a way to make this, well, A, make people understand it, but B, make it something easy that people would do on the
Mm.
regular, right? Because we're all time poor and, you want something like a Lemsip, which is a simple sachet that you just tear open and
Yeah.
off you go. So that kind of set me about on a couple of years of just R&D and reading the science and trying to understand the immune system and how it worked, speaking to doctors, nutritionists, immunologists, and yeah, finding out what happens. And then, as you mentioned, I was in baby food and then I set up a sales and marketing agency. But, my passion has always been that food is medicine and food has power and it can do things in the body. So, even in when we were doing baby food, we were incorporating different herbs and spices in the baby food so that because of the science it showed when in the first 18 months of your life, you develop your palate. The
Mm.
tastes you have from a young age develop what you then crave as an adult. So, you know, traditionally, you would feed a baby apple puree, high in sugar, very sweet. And of course, we then all love sweets when we're older.
Yeah.
But, if you feed them a vegetable-based puree with an added bit of cinnamon and basil, all of a sudden they're developing a much more complex taste profile. So it's these kind of changes in food and drink and medicine that really interest me, and I've just got a natural curiosity for. So, the tonic idea has been in development for sort of 4 or 5 years of me mining the research and the data and understanding how I could make the best possible formula in this space.
Sounds like those 3 or 4 years would have been such a interesting journey for you as someone, not just because you're interested in that side of the science as well, but also you must have been finding out things that maybe were so obvious to other people, but not obvious to the mainstream population, I'm guessing. Last year when you first launched, what were some of the struggles? Because the vitamin market, you go to any sort of health shop or even super drug boots, anywhere like that, you got aisles of vitamins, right? You got aisles of things that are meant to make you feel better, meant to make you feel happier, and all these other aspects to it. So I'm guessing it's obviously quite a noisy market in a sense, but not noisy in the other sense where it's being put in front of your face 24/7. How did you guys manage to obviously get yourselves out there, get yourself known, get those first couple of like agreements in place to get the ball rolling?
Yeah, I mean, so you're absolutely right. It's a very noisy market, and I think our biggest challenge in the market as a whole is, a little bit around the legislation of what you can and can't say. And that's because, if you put 40 milligrams of Vit C in a product, you can say the same thing as I can say when I have 30 times more.
Mm,
Um, and there's no differentiation between that in the legislation. So you get a plethora of vitamins on the market that are super low dose,
yeah,
even by science, have proven that at that dose, the only thing it's good for is preventing an
yeah,
illness, preventing a deficiency rather than actually having any effect. But the consumer doesn't know that. So that is one of the main things we're having to overcome. So the way we're doing that is through retailer education. So we are, we're in close to 900 independent pharmacies already. And, we've done that by speaking to the pharmacists, helping them understand because they've not always had, classical nutrition training. They've had medical pharmacy training. So they're not also that well versed in the science often.
mm,
So, we explain to them, we show them scientific studies, we show how we're different and talk to them about how they should be offering tonic to a customer. Because, quite often the pharmacist is your point of information.
yeah.
You have
They're the
something.
educators, I guess, right?
Exactly. They're the market educators. So, if you've had something lingering for like 7 to 10 days and you're really struggling with it, you'll
Mm,
go to your pharmacist and be like, look, I can't shake this cold. What do I do? And, that's where I need them to be saying, well, if it's just a cold or a flu, then the best thing you can do for that is help your immune system fight it off
yeah.
faster. So, therefore, you need something like tonic, which is the highest dose vitamin on the market, which will have the highest impact in that time of need.
Exactly. Are you aiming with tonic? Is it to be a fixer or is it to be part of a lifestyle? Are you wanting people to have this like you mentioned earlier when you first started discovering that sort of secret blend of herbs and spices, let's put it that way. When you did that, you were having it 3 times a day when you were feeling like a cold was coming on. So for Tonic Health, are you aiming to be that fixer, like I said, or do you rather have more of a, actually, I want people to adopt, obviously a healthier lifestyle with tonic involved in that lifestyle?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I would class my kind of thinking as, a functional medicine thinking. So in every box of tonic that we send out, there are 5 steps to immune health, which, the first one being good sleep, good
Yeah.
diet, exercise, and then you get on to, take some extra supplements. So
Hmm.
it's 100% a lifestyle thing. If you want an optimal immune system or just health in general, there's so many different factors and you can't pigeonhole into one at all.
Yeah.
But tonic as a brand is very much designed for what we've seen in data is the majority of people who wait until they have an issue and then they want to do something about it. And
Mm.
that's where tonic comes in, being the highest dose. So you can
Yeah.
really deliver at that time of need. Whilst, at the same time, there are plenty of people out there that will be planned and prepared, and they'll want something they can just take daily for 6 months. And we'll, absolutely cater for those people as well in the future,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Well, I guess people don't walk into the pharmacy going, I feel great. What can I have?
Exactly.
It is that sort of when you feel bad, then you want to try and fix it. But I think the whole, it's interesting actually to get your thoughts on this question that's popped into my head now. But obviously this year has been quite an interesting year in terms of people's awareness of health and awareness of, I love your little friend in your video there, awareness of
She,
health.
she just woke up. Go
It's
on,
cool.
Mason.
Dogs in videos, I think, is just one of the best things.
You can't go wrong.
No, my dog just strolled in and strolled out a minute ago. But obviously, increase in awareness of health for you. Have you seen a change in that pattern of people wanting to just just take a more of an adoptive, healthier lifestyle, or start putting more vitamins into their body to prevent and obviously to increase their immune system?
Absolutely. I think it has been a macro trend for the last probably 20 years. And, it comes down to the fact we are just becoming more educated. The science is evolving.
Yeah,
20 years ago, fat was bad. Now fat is good. And, that's purely because of our understanding of how fat works in the body that we didn't have 20 years ago. So, I think there's that macro trend. But then obviously we launched a year ago, but then you've had a global pandemic come into play.
interesting
And
time to launch a health company.
interesting time, yeah. Well, and one that specifically looks at kind of cold and flu and
Mm,
immunity. So it's been a crazy journey for us. And what we've seen that pandemic do is just elevate the understanding again, whether it's digital trends are
mm,
being driven by the pandemic, because it's people were shopping online more, but the pandemic has driven that further. People understood their health and were moving towards healthier lifestyles, but the pandemic has just driven it
yeah,
further. So they've kind of accentuated those trends, where we've seen people talk to us and buy our product who are like, I've never bought anything like this before. What do you recommend? How do you use it? Because they're worried
yeah.
about what's going on in the world. And you even had like a French government minister come out and say, well, take something like ibuprofen because it can actually suppress your immune function when you take it. So it's not going to help you with anything like COVID. It will only beef, and actually what we need to be focusing on is your immune system and giving it the nutrients it needs to fight off that infection.
Yeah, definitely. I think what's really interesting that, like you said, more people are becoming purpose driven in the sense where they want to explore what else is out there. They want to find out and discover for themselves what can they be taking, what can they be doing to make themselves healthier. I guess at the end of the day, isn't it? No matter COVID or not, people want to be a healthier person, which is great. I'm really interested to know because your previous background, obviously, you co-founded a sales marketing agency, you did a lot of big stuff in the baby food market. Now, what's different about Tonic Health in terms of how you've ran businesses before and how you've grown them before?
It's a good question. I mean, what's different? I think it's never, I don't think anyone will ever understand what it's like to be a founder of a business until you're the founder yourself. So by that, I mean, I was one of the first people into the baby food company. I was heavily involved in it pre-launch. And, you know, there was an element of still, though, I was just an employee.
Mm.
And, I wasn't the founder leading it. And when you found your own company, you really, I guess, you're putting yourself out there, what you believe in. And, every time a consumer leaves a bad review, it like personally touches you because you're like, why didn't they like my product?
Yeah,
So I think there's, from a just emotional perspective, there's a big difference which you'll never understand until you actually launch something yourself. And I thought I understood it because I'd done startups before, but
mm.
never in the way of I experienced it as with Tonic. But then how we're growing it, I think, in the past, you know, well, with an agency, new business is all about, pitching and speaking to new clients all the time and winning new business. In baby food, it was finding new mums and consumer education all the time and finding ways to integrate that brand into people's lives because it was daily food. With Tonic, it's different because it's really about education and people have to understand this market challenge and what's happening and what they need to do at that time of need, where the education just, isn't fully there.
Mm.
So that's why we're having to work a lot with all these store staff and really explain to them the market and why they need to recommend certain products.
Why isn't the education there then? Why do you think there is still that gap in getting the knowledge from people like yourselves to that end consumer without having to go via the pharmacy, like we said earlier?
That's a good question. I mean, it's one thing we're never taught, right? Even, a lot of doctors, they're taught a lot about medicines and how the body works, but they don't cover much on nutrition, as
Mm.
I understand it. There is also a lot of misleading kind of press that kind of muddies the waters where you have, myths about certain vitamins around, people think a lot of people will always just tell you, oh, well, if you have such a high dose, don't you just, aren't you just buying expensive pee? Because you don't absorb it. But no one's actually looking into the data and how the body works if you're ill and why you need a much
Hmm.
higher amount. They just see a headline, which makes good news, but no one goes into the data. It saddens me to see how the pandemic is playing out as well, because the media create headlines. They don't create education,
Sure.
and that is the fundamental problem in health, as well as the pandemic, as well as other things, because people read a headline, they might read the first few paragraphs of an article, but they never really critically analyze the problem or
Mm.
the science behind it.
So I'm guessing like with anything that comes up when we talk about education, it has to be from those earlier days, at school, at high school, at university, where people are not being forced, but it's just naturally in the curriculum to talk about nutrition, talk about actually this is the difference of your body or your life, or actually I think on a more of an energy basis now people focus on, but this is difference on your energy if you do, diet A or diet B. For you, you're obviously someone that has a huge passion about this, and I think this is why Tonic Health is probably doing so well, because it has been 4 or 5 years in the making from your own experience, which, speaking to over 180 founders, when that's the story, it's always a successful business. It's always something that is much more connected to the founder, which is always interesting to see. But how do you make sure that you are being that best person that you can be, that you're being the best founder that you can be, that you're showing up to make sure that Tonic Health is moving forward in that right direction? How do you make sure that you're at your peak, let's put it that way?
Yeah, it's a funny journey I've kind of learned the hard way this year, because I probably up until September, I would say I worked 6 days a week. There wasn't a day where I wasn't on email. I kind of just live and breathe the business.
Mm. The
And thank
OG
God,
startup journey.
yeah, well, exactly. Thankfully, I've got a very understanding wife who kind of understands the mission I'm on and lets me do that. But I thought the best way for me to show up for the business was to work as long and as hard as I possibly could. The reality was, I found myself kind of in August after, essentially working from home because of the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
just felt just generally a bit fatigued. It wasn't necessarily like a sports fatigue or energy, but like I didn't have the same level of ideas or enthusiasm
Yeah.
about certain things because I was just tired and a bit burnt out. So, I went on holiday to Croatia just for 5 days in the beginning of September because I needed just that reset button to go sit on a beach, five
Mm.
days, do nothing, ignore work, and allow me to just come back refreshed. And yeah, I think just seeing that contrast already has been so important. And I think, how do you show up? Yeah, you've really got to manage that kind of stress and balance. So when it's not about the number of hours, it's about when you show up. You have that passion, you have that enthusiasm and that motivation to drive the business forward
Yeah.
and kind of motivate your team to do the same.
And I'm guessing, well, I'm hoping I should say that you learned something from having that little break, and you've put things in place that means that you're not going to go back into the cycle of pre-Croatia.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I
Busted.
think no, I do value it. I mean, I wear this band, which is like a Whoop fitness tracker,
Oh, I've
which
heard about those.
really cool little piece of kit, like very cheap. It's on a subscription model, and it essentially just monitors my heart rate and it monitors my sleep so that it can tell me in the morning how well recovered I am. And
Mm,
those decisions. Sorry about that.
that's right.
Those decisions and that app will enable me to go, okay, do you know what? Today I should finish at
Yeah.
6, and I should just take the evening off to help my recovery, help me then sleep better, so that tomorrow I can have a really productive day rather than continuing on that cycle and trying to force my way through the evening
Yeah.
kind of
Again, it just comes back to that awareness side of things, isn't it? You've got to be aware to be able to do changes and implement those sort of things into your life, which is great that you're doing that now. Let's talk about the future then. Let's talk about the future of Tonic Health. You're a year old this week, so happy anniversary, happy birthday, happy congratulations, all those good things. What's
thing.
next for you guys? What's next for the next couple of years or the year ahead?
Absolutely. So, we see ourselves as a brand that's really trying to, harness the power of the immune system to tackle common illnesses. So, obviously, we've started with cold and flu, but there's plenty of other things out there that need fixing. Hay fever being a common problem people have, and they're often taking a drug-based thing, which isn't always good for the body. So there are more natural ways to do that. So that's definitely in the future trajectory. But then, for us, it's about building our foothold in the UK, really, establishing our awareness so that consumers know that Tonic Health is there as a go-to option in place of Lemsip. So, that's our priority first and foremost. And, as a year-old brand, we're still low awareness and we've got a lot to do on that and build up our distribution with the likes of Holland and Barrett, of
Yeah.
Boots, and these guys. Um, but beyond that, and moving into kind of 2021, then international becomes an interesting thing for us because cold and flu is something that's ubiquitous across the world, and most markets have the similar problems that we do. So 100% we want to go international and be
Yeah.
the kind of go-to brand in this space.
I'm assuming that international brings a whole new logistical nightmare, though, in terms of every country probably has different laws to get into that sort of market and all that kind of stuff, which keeps your job exciting.
It does. I mean, the good thing about the EU, fingers crossed if we get a good transitional deal, is that they kind of level the playing field, at least for Europe.
Yeah.
So most things are standardized and set by the European Food Standard Authority. So no problems for the rest of Europe. Obviously, then the US has a different model with the FDA, but usually, the EU rules are a bit more stringent
Mm.
than the US rules. So whilst there'll be new things to learn and obviously paperwork and forms to complete and certain rules to adhere to, should be an easier step for us actually than dealing with the European ones.
Yeah, I love that. One of my final questions for you is, which is something I like to ask people that are still fairly new in this journey anyway, in terms of all your journeys. But over the last year, what's been one of the most memorable experiences that has happened for you that you look back on now and actually makes you really proud of what you've created?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was definite pinch me moment, which was back in kind of March when we were kind of understanding what the hell was going on with this pandemic. And, at the time we weren't in a lockdown, and we wanted to get our message out there because any kind of thing in this place, the immune system is more important. than ever. And the real pinch me moment, I remember it well, was my my PR team had said, "Oh, there's a good chance we're going to get into the Telegraph." And so I was like, "Okay, amazing! Like this will be great for our
Yeah,
awareness." And so I went down to my local Sainsbury's and went to buy the Telegraph. And literally on the front page of the Telegraph, there was the article headline of, top ways to look after your immune system, with the coronavirus. And so we were like, the article was on the front page. And then when you turn to the actual article, we were recommended like number 3 out of 13
amazing.
things. And the first 2 were like, wash your hands and follow the NHS advice. And then it was like, buy tonic. And we were just like astounded by it. And that was like, I remember coming out of Sainsbury's just being like, a giddy little school kid, like at Christmas, just so excited
With
and just
all the
happy.
telegraphs in your hand.
Literally, yeah, I just bought like all of them, just like kind of ran home.
Has to
Um,
be done.
yeah, so that was a pretty special moment because you think you're going to get a mention maybe
Yeah,
somewhere in the
yeah.
back, but to be so prominent was just like out of this world for us.
And also, obviously, with the timing of that, and like we said, what's going on in the world, brands like yours, which, like I said earlier, you obviously have so much care and passion for what you want to do, should be having more limelight, should be put in front of more people, because what you want to do isn't you're not saying, this is a miracle cure. This is going to help your immune system, and at the end of the day, a better immune system, COVID or not, is a better person, which means that you can do better, you can show up more, you have more energy, all these other avenues that sort of are a byproduct of the product, which is really great. And I can imagine you walking into Sainsbury's and seeing that article, and that must be a really nice moment. I have no doubt that you're going to have more moments of that to come, and pinch me moments. So maybe in a couple of years, I'll ask you that question again and see what the answer is. But
Absolutely.
my final question is, how can people find out more about Tonic Health, man?
So essentially, you can read our website. You can buy us from our website. We have subscription offers there. But we have like an immunity hub on our website where, we're close to 100 blogs now, where, we are just trying to help people understand this fascinating thing because, most people didn't even know that, bone marrow is a key part of the immune system and is
Wow.
where the white blood cells are produced. It's like the production house. And, people just don't even understand how it works. So we're just there trying to educate and trying to help spread the message essentially. So yeah, the website is www.tonichealth.co and you can find out all the information there.
Fantastic. So no, I think you're doing a fantastic thing, and I wish you all the best. I look forward to seeing further growth of Tonic Health, and if I'm ever in Sainsbury's and I see you guys on, I'll make sure I take a photo and send it to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank
Appreciate
you
the
so
chat.
much.
It's great to talk.
Thanks everyone else for listening and watching. This has been Founders 365.